Good evening. I'm Nathan Stix, Chair of the Community Activities Commission, calling to order the Newcastle Community Activities Commission meeting of May 14th, 2025. The time is 6 p.m. This public meeting is being recorded, broadcast live, and may be viewed later on the city's YouTube channel. Could you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Amy, would you please do the roll call?
Certainly. Commissioner Forsberg. Present. Commissioner Van Atta. Present. Commissioner Lee. Present. Commissioner D'Souza.
Present.
Commissioner Kretzinger. Present. Vice Chair Flash.
He is running late.
Chair Stix.
I am present.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? Amy, would you please show the final agenda approved as presented? Next, approval of our minutes. So we've got two sets of minutes in our packets, March 12th and April 9th, to approve. Is there any objection to approve those minutes? And I'm not seeing any objections, so we show the minutes approved as presented. Moving right along, public comment. Do we have anybody in the audience or anyone online for public comment? We do not. Okay. Commissioner comments and celebrations. Does anyone have anything they would like to share? Okie dokie, we're moving right along. So we're going to get right into reports. And why don't we start with Amy, Events and Recreation Coordinator.
Certainly. Commissioners and the public, you'll find the report in the packet. There's also additional copies on the table there. Under events, I just want to remind you that summer sponsorship recruiting is well underway. The information is there in the report, and there will be an update from the CAC subcommittee later this meeting. The summer event planning continues. You hopefully saw all the promotion that went up on social media a couple weeks ago, so the start is happening. The call for food vendors went out, and the first review for food vendors is on the 15th. We have had, at the time of this report a couple weeks ago, it was 25 vendors. It's now closer to over 30 vendors have applied. So there will be some good choices. I will need to connect with our fireworks and concert subcommittee to have you folks take a first look at those. And then in about a month, connect with our Newcastle Days subcommittee to take a look at the food vendors for those. A reminder about fireworks on the lake and concerts in the park, the dates for those and the performers for those. And finally, Newcastle Days planning is underway. You should have seen the car show promotion go online as well. The pre-registration is up and running. We already have folks registering for the car show, so everything's well underway. Programs, we are doing a heavy push online for summer camp registration. This is the time to do it. We're very excited not only about returning Skyhawks camps this summer. We have the new camps that are using Lakeborn Shelter as a outdoor classroom, and we have 1 week of AL Studio Art Camp and 3 weeks of Challenge Island STEAM Camp. So those themes are Slimetopia, World Cruise, and Arcade Mania. And then finally, just a reminder about our volunteer newsletter. It goes out on Friday, May 23rd. It's a great way to highlight year-round opportunities. So if you have any volunteer listings from your organizations, please send them my way by Thursday, May 22nd, and I'll make sure that they get into our volunteer newsletter. I do have one more thing, but before I do this other thing, are there any questions about the report as presented here? Okay. So something has come up between when this report was put out and today. And so I wanted to take a moment as sort of an addendum to my report to take a few minutes to offer to the public and the commissioners a quick refresher on how items get into the CAC agenda and how materials are included in meeting packets. So how did this report get in there? How did the agenda get decided? Commissioners will remember that this was covered in an email last summer when your Outlook invite was updated to reflect the 6 p.m. meeting time. So just a reminder, here's how it works. During the last week of each month, the chair and the vice chair meet with me to set the agenda for the following month's meeting. The CAC drives this process. That means if there's something that the CAC would like to discuss, the first step should be to go to the chair or the vice chair, and they'll bring those items forward during this agenda meeting. Once the agenda is set, I take care of drafting it and putting together any requested materials, whether it's an agenda memo, a presentation, a report, or anything needed to support discussion. Again, I want to emphasize that this is the public's commission, not mine, not any staff members, so it's up to the commission to guide what goes on the agenda and in the packet. That said, I am always happy to offer guidance to anyone if they're unsure whether something is necessary or how to best move forward with a particular agenda item. Subsequently, after the draft agenda materials are prepared, everything is sent to City Clerk Westman no later than the Wednesday before the scheduled meeting. This deadline is critical. It ensures that the full packet can be posted publicly on our website within the required time frame. Now, of course, there are extenuating circumstances. For example, with this particular meeting, we have a group presenting who presented a 4-page memo, and it was my recommendation to them that they focus it down to 1 page. And thus, it was not able to get into the packet on time, but you'll find it photocopied for you, and the public will find it photocopied on the table here, and it will go in the document center after this meeting. Those are extenuating circumstances we hope to avoid by planning ahead. So a bit of good news for the commissioners. I've recommended and the chair and the vice chair have agreed to begin using a planning calendar. This is something that both the Planning Commission and the City Council use. And I believe it's going to be a valuable tool for the CAC as well. And as planned, Chair Sticks, Vice Chair Flash, and I hope to share this with you at the June meeting. So before I wrap up with this little addendum to my report, I wanted to also just give a quick overview as to my role and the bandwidth I'm working with. As you know, I'm a part-time staff member and I'm split between 2 core functions. Point 2 FTE, roughly 8 hours a week, is dedicated to city communications. That includes newsletters, social media, website articles and updates, emails and phone calls, and other communication needs as they arise. Point 6 FTE is focused on serving as the events and recreation coordinator. That's 32 hours a week during the summer season, making me a FTE, a full-time employee during the summer season between June 15th and September 15th. However, that means 22 hours per week the rest of the year. This role covers all city events, recreation programs, volunteer initiatives, and support for the commission and community partners, just to name a few things. So when I say following this agenda process and timeline is not just appreciated and necessary, that's where I'm coming from. Sticking to the structure we outlined helps ensures that commissioners are prepared, the public is informed, and the CAC can have a smooth and productive meeting. I'm happy to summarize this for anybody who would like a short bulleted reminder of what the process is. And I'm really looking forward to that planning calendar, as I know Chair Sticks is as well. I'm happy to take any questions from the commission on that. Alrighty. That is my report today. Thank you, Chair Sticks.
Thank you, Amy. Okay. Christian, why don't we start with you, Historical Society and the Chamber.
Alrighty. It was really wonderful to see so many of our community contributors at the Diamond Awards on April 30th. These are the people who really make our community so lovely and unique, including our own Amy George, who was nominated for the Customer Service Award, a finalist for it actually. And in my opinion, that is more than well deserved. To see all the winners and finalists, you can go to the Chamber website and look at the Diamond Awards page. Tomorrow, the Chamber will be hosting an after hours from 5 to 7 p.m. at Terry's Kitchen, and you can register to attend that on the Chamber website as well, and it's a great opportunity to mix and mingle with local business owners. The monthly 5 Chamber, that is Newcastle, Issaquah, Mercer Island, Sammamish, and Snow Valley. Breakfast theme this month is Fast Track Your Connections, and will be a speed networking breakfast on Friday, June 6th from 7:30 to 9 a.m. at the Hilton Garden Inn in Issaquah. You can register for that on the Chamber website as well. As for the Historical Society, May is always a big ramping up month for them because they host a cemetery cleanup that is focused on getting the cemetery ready for presentation on Memorial Day. So that cleanup is happening this Saturday, May 17th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can come anytime between 10 and 2 and help get the cemetery ready for Memorial Day. You'll be helping clear ivy, remove debris, and or transport already cleared vegetation to an area accessible for city removal. You should bring work gloves, hand pruners if you have them, and dress appropriately for being outdoors and wear sturdy shoes. Monday, May 26th is Memorial Day, where all that hard work will be shown off. The cemetery will be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and it's a rare opportunity to connect with our local history and our rich past. A history, which I would like to note, has been preserved thanks to the detailed and tireless work of the incredible volunteers that make up the Newcastle Historical Society. I highly recommend visiting. I learn something new every time.
Thank you, Christian. Shally, what's going on at the Y?
I don't have updates for the Y. I have not heard back from Andy yet, so hopefully tomorrow I can get them to you.
Okay, thank you. Allison, since Newcastle Trails is here, is there any other updates?
Nothing, I won't add anything except that I'm looking forward to joining their board meeting in June by Zoom. But yeah, thanks for coming and covering it.
Connie, what's going on at the library or Friends of the Library?
Yeah, so as always, the library has events that are ongoing throughout the month, so would encourage anyone who's interested to take a look at the full list on the King County Library System website. But tonight I'll highlight one event coming up next Tuesday, May 20th. It's a chess for kids and teens from 5:45 to 7:15 p.m. They do ask that you register ahead of time for this one on the King County Library System website. Registration will close at 2 p.m. on May 20th. This will be interactive sessions for covering basic chess rules to advanced strategies. You can practice your skills with friendly matches and learn techniques taught by a coach. This is sponsored by the Friends of the Newcastle Library.
Thank you. And of course, Ed will be getting us his report, probably via email. And just a reminder to please either give me a copy of your notes or email them to me tonight, because I now have to get that report into Amy and Jane first thing tomorrow morning. So I'd appreciate you giving me that information. Okay, moving right along. On the agenda is a topic of unfinished business. So as you know, this is something that I've been talking to you guys about for some time now. I still want us to consider the possibility of updating the name of this commission. And I still need some recommendations from a couple of you. Thank you for those of you that did pop in online this afternoon and enter your options. But I would like to get everybody's feedback so that we can have some more discussion in the future. And again, why am I passionate about this? I'm just going to read my notes that I have here. So a well-chosen name conveys a sense of purpose, transparency, and community focus depending on the city's values. We all know that the city and we value very much our parks, our trails, and our activities that go on in Newcastle, and we think we get a lot of value out of that. And it's very clear to me, especially over the last year, that we're not necessarily perceived as anything other than the Events Commission and Activities Commission. A clear and straightforward name makes it easier for citizens to understand the structure of their local government and hold commissioners accountable for their decisions. And lastly, the name allows citizens and organizations to easily identify who to contact regarding local issues. So I really would just like us to continue to think about restructuring the name of the commission. And you know that the past history, when this commission was first formed, it was the Parks Commission, and it was made up of solely Parks commissioners. And then in 2013, Rich Crispo, the mayor at the time, at a retreat, recommended to council that they rename it to the Activities Commission, and then they restructured actually the commissioners on the commission to be more of a diversified group of people that really were more actively involved in planning events and activities in the city, because before 2013, there weren't a lot of, I think, activities. And as we grew as a city, as we became more, have more options, like Lake Warren Park became bigger and have more capabilities, it became obvious that there's a lot more that we could do. So anybody have any thoughts?
I'm just going to say that I don't have any real strong feelings about changing the name, honestly, but I do see some value in diversifying activities a little bit, just to remind people that trails and parks are included. Again, I don't have any strong feelings about changing the name, but it seems like maybe that has been lost. And I also think part of that might be because we have such a strong Newcastle Trails group that it's almost like they're doing so much of the trails themselves. So those are my thoughts about it. Not heavily invested in changing the name. However, I think as far as the commission goes and its responsibility, air quotes around the word responsibility for trails and parks too, I think some value might be given to including that somehow as well.
And I just had a question. I think last time we had asked if we knew if there was a cost associated with changing the name. Did we hear back on that? So I don't have exact figures, but I do have a general sense. So the main cost per se would be staff time and updating all of the website and informational pieces. And the only other cost I can see at this point would be cost for replacement business cards. A pack of those business cards are approximately, so the box that each of you get are approximately $60. Times 7 is more than my 2025 budget can handle, so it may, depending on when the decision is made, those business cards may have to be phased in. At this point, this is the only fiscal cost, and again, I don't have an exact proposal for you until we get the final recommendation to then present to council. But that's what we're looking at. So thank you for asking.
Any other comments? Okay, so we will just continue this as a discussion point. My feeling is that the cost is minimal. And again, it's a recommendation we'd be making to council. We can't make that decision. It would be something we would take to council and have them have the final vote if they felt it was also important. Ed, I'm going to welcome you officially here. We're going to come back and we'll do the Arts Council reports in the value of time and our guests in the audience. We're going to go ahead and keep moving forward if that's okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys. With that, on to general business and Newcastle Trails. Gary Campen, thank you for coming tonight. And you are on. And did you get one of these? Did everybody get one of?
Here we go. Okay, good. I have to get up here more often. I'm forgetting how these machines work. Well, I want to thank Amy for doing these, doing the packet and reminding me to make a nice little one-page summary and then getting it in the packet. And again, I really wish we had Amy for Newcastle Trails. If you could somehow loan her out, maybe we can work a deal behind the scenes. But anyhow, that's my feeling about Amy. This is going to be a very short presentation because all the details are in the maps and documents I've sent. But basically, on behalf of Newcastle Trails, I'm requesting 2 changes to the current comprehensive plan. The first is add a proposed resource park, the Sylvan Park. And we put this in the hopper back in 2024 and it just never made it into the plan. The other thing is new. Change the proposed Cougar Access Trail in 2 ways. Change its name to Cougar Trail, change its route so it connects the Terrace and DeLeo Wall trails as a nature trail, and avoids a planned subdivision called Greencastle. And I'll just say a few more words about the Sylvan Park, that it would do 2 important things. It would provide a lovely new park to the Hazelwood area, and more important, it would provide a park that is missing from the west side. Everything to the west is in the park deficient area when you look at the rest of the comprehensive plan, the walking map in particular, the walk shed map. So those folks need a park. We can always use a new park in Hazelwood, and it would be a great little park with features other parks don't have. It's in a valley, it's got cliffs and fawns, ferns, moss. It's like being in a little part of the Olympic National Park. So that's one thing. It would also allow us to complete 2 important trails, the Sylvan Trail from Hazelwood to May Creek Park, and the 80th Street Trail from Renton to Hazelwood. And when the May Creek Trail is extended under I-405, which will happen fairly soon, that would give us a walking route from Lake Washington all the way to Cougar Mountain Park, which is kind of a neat thing. But the main thing is provide a lovely little park to an underserved part of the city and connect the 2 halves of the city and connect everybody with these 2 great trails. So that's the bottom line. And now I'm just here to take questions.
Yeah, I've got a question about Sylvan Park. It just so happens I walked that trail very recently. It's close to my backyard.
Yeah.
And there are no trespassing signs everywhere, so I actually thought I'd hit a dead end down there. Have you, are all of those accurate? And is that, I guess I'm having a hard time just envisioning how that space would work, because you're right, it is quite a deep valley.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it was a dead end, so I might have missed where the second red line is that takes you up and out of that valley. But can you help me as I'm trying to
Sure,
envision
and
it?
in fact, maybe we can use this map that you all have. So if you want to start at Donegal Park and walk south on the red line that marks the Crosstown Trail, you'll see that there's an existing access that goes to a street. You follow the street on the sidewalk, and there's another access that gives you access into the south end of that, or the south side of that city property that we put in the park, the green place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, south of it is an HOA parcel. It's owned by Lake Washington Division Crest, Division 2 to the right. On the left is Lake Washington Crest Division 1. But the HOA for Lake Washington Division Crest 2 owns the entire parcel. And the Sylvan Trail, so if you walk the Sylvan Trail starting in Hazelwood, you'd first be in that city land, and then as you went south, you should have seen an access on your right, did you, with steps?
I came from the steps, so I
Okay,
think
you
I
came down
from
the steps.
South Red, yeah, and went left,
And you went left.
yeah.
Okay, well, that brought you into the city property, and then you should have been able to find an access up and out.
That's what I couldn't find,
Ah, okay.
yeah.
Well, anyhow, but I'm so glad you did that, because, and I don't want to be long-winded, but, you know, when I first moved out in 1980, that was a lovely area, and we had a well-beaten trail, Sylvan Trail, all the way from Hazelwood down to May Creek Park. People used it a lot because it was so lovely down in that little valley. But as soon as development really started in earnest, people started putting up no trespassing signs. And here's something interesting. People don't always put up no trespassing signs when they own the land. I mean, people just put up no trespassing signs, even if it's on public land, because they don't want you to walk there because it's close to their home. So anyhow, signs started popping up, whether they were from landowners or non-landowners. They blocked the trail and we stopped walking it and it got overgrown. But it was a lovely trail in its heyday. And now we've got the section into May Creek Park completely opened up, partly on sidewalks. And if we can get enough easements, trail easements in that wooded area, we could still make it a wooden trail all the way to the present existing trail. But if not, we could use sidewalks that exist. So if we can get just that little section of trail between the two corridors, then we'll have a complete Sylvan Trail. And the first part of it will be in that beautiful little valley with the woods on either side and ferns and all the rest. So that's the main thing. And the other thing that's important is you couldn't find the exit. And if it was a park, if that city-owned property itself was a park, then we could put in trail signs and build at least a trail in that section and have a park sign on the street so that right now the valley is invisible. You can't see the park from any street or sidewalk. So once even the first half was a park, we could have signs, people would know there was a park there. They could find their way into it in one end and out of it on the other. So, you know, that's the thing. And I'm amazed that people are still using it, that there's enough of a trail there.
It was quite rugged, but yes, okay.
Yeah, and in
Yeah.
fact, if we just did the first section, I can guarantee you there'd be a trail between the, you know, Hazelwood and Lake Washington Crest to the west. And then, of course, we'd have to work with the people on the east to grant a trail easement. But the folks in the west would support us in that.
Got it, okay,
And
thank
the
you.
city, and again, the city could, with the park in hand, the city could get grants and do all sorts of wonderful things. So the key is get it into the plan, and then we can do some wonderful things.
Got it, okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Gary? Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Okay, you're welcome.
Well, that's going to bring us into our next section, so we're going to go right through any comprehensive plan and amendment process. So, and at that point, I do have some questions for Brendan that we'll bring up for discussion.
So I'll introduce this topic while Brendan gets set up. I'm grateful that he can be here this evening to present it, since he's much more versed in this. However, so the presentation you just heard references adding things to the comprehensive plan. This is something that the commission has not been asked to consider before, but it's something that the staff has very much wanted to see to be able to better vet ideas, refine ideas before they go into the comprehensive plan addendums each year. And so, as a result of not being familiar with this process, Brendan, along with Director Fitzgibbons, have put together a presentation for you so that you better understand what is the comprehensive plan, particularly when it comes to parks and trails element? What is the process to update it? And then Brendan is available for questions so that you have a sense of how this all fits together. And then at the end of his presentation, if you have questions about what has been presented for Newcastle Trails, you can ask Brendan right then and now, but we can also take questions back to the staff because on our planning calendar, we will be coming back as a commission in June to make recommendations, should there be any, to the council to amend the comprehensive plan. That was a lot of big words. Does that make sense, the process? Okay. Wonderful. Take it over, Mr. Hutchins.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot, Amy. I wasn't expecting that, so I had my own little preface here, but that was better than mine, so I appreciate it. Yeah, bottom line, just want to give you guys an overview of what the comp plan is, comprehensive plan, and what the amendment process looks like, and then tailor it a little bit towards parks and trails. Okay, so what is the comprehensive plan? So most jurisdictions, including Newcastle, must plan fully under the provisions of Growth Management Act, RCW 36.70A, accommodating forecast population and employment growth while also protecting the environment and important resources by limiting urban expansion. This plan sets the vision and provides the community with the goals for its future development and related policy direction. That's pulled from the Newcastle 2024 to 2044 comprehensive plan. So just some key points about the comp plan. It's state mandated as part of the Growth Management Act. Again, that's RCW 3670A. It's got a 20-year horizon and is updated every 10 years. It's very high level aspirational goals and policies related to accommodating growth within jurisdiction's boundaries. It guides local lawmaking, and there's also an annual update via amendments. So although it's looking out 20 years and is updated every 10 years, there's also the annual update for any amendments people want to make to it to bridge the gap. So what should be in a comprehensive plan? So this is going to tailor a little bit more to parks and trails and what content is appropriate for the comp plan. So state code does not mandate a parks and trails element. However, due to the importance of parks and trails in Newcastle, and yet the cumbersome editing schedule of a comp plan, staff has recommended only the high level necessary scope to be within the document. So per RCW 3670A.0708's recommendation, a park and recreation element that implements and consists with the capital facilities plan element as it relates to park and recreation facilities. The element shall include A, estimates of park and recreation demand for at least a 10-year period, B, an evaluation of facilities and service needs, C, an evaluation of tree canopy coverage within the urban growth area, and D, an evaluation of intergovernmental coordination opportunities to provide regional approaches for meeting park and recreational demand. So with that in mind, something that we've done new this year was including what's called the 10-minute walk shed. So what you see on your screens right now is the 10-minute walk shed that's included, the map that's included in the Parks and Trails portion of the comp plan. So a walk shed is the area around a destination, in this case a park or facility, that is reachable on foot for the average person. So for planning purposes, an average person is assumed to be expected to walk about 10 minutes or about a half mile on level ground. So for a walk shed analysis to be performed in a robust manner, one should not simply indicate a walk shed around a park by depicting an ordinary circle, which one might typically think of, but rather with a half mile radius, obstructions, barriers, safety, and property lines prevent direct travel in a straight line if you were to do that, just a radius. So additionally, existing sidewalks, trails, and street crossings shall be used to analyze acceptable paths to travel on foot. So that's why you get kind of a funny map here. What you're looking at in those areas that are shaded, kind of the gray-blue, are what are seen as within the 10-minute walk shed. So any of the areas inside of that, when run through the program, have shown to be able to meet any of those areas can walk to a park within 10 minutes. So anywhere that are outside of the gray-blue area are seen as underserviced in terms of either a park or access. Access can be a trail or sidewalk. So that just gives you a big overview of, and helps us plan for what areas in Newcastle should we be looking to develop. And as Gary had mentioned, the west side, you can see kind of that southwest side is more barren than a majority of the rest of Newcastle there. So a helpful tool. So some questions to consider when thinking about adding or making an amendment to the comp plan. An important concept would be concurrency. So how the city is maintaining levels of service with new growth. For example, managing congestion or having enough parks within a walking distance of homes. Again, kind of citing back to the walk shed map. So a few questions. Does a project meet the city's goals and policies in the comp plan? Does a project or amendment help maintain levels of service? Does it increase access to parks or trails in areas of the city that don't currently have access? What is the impact on city resources? So, considering cost, staffing, schedule, time, and then in light of all of those previous questions above, what is the level of priority of the project? And then lastly, I'd like to just mention what the timeline for making an amendment would be. So amendment applications must be received by July 15th of any year to be considered for that year's docket. Thus why we're discussing this now. If we needed to discuss it again, if this conversation goes further, we can discuss it again on the June CIC meeting. So we're prepared to have the recommendations to council and the recommendation received by July 15th, prior to July 15th. Anything received after that date will not be considered after that day will be considered for the next year's amendment cycle. I have a couple more notes, but I'll leave it at that for now, and am open to any questions.
Brendan, can you go back to the map?
Yes.
I don't know if, will your pointer work?
Let's
Can
see.
you
Let's
point out
give it a
where
try.
Sylvan Park would be on this?
Yes.
Is it the triangle?
Can you see?
Oh, it's up there.
Can you see I just made a little mark
Oh,
on
yeah,
there,
okay.
right in that area.
Because one comment that you made was, you see how on the west end of the map, it looks a little sparse.
Yes.
And so adding a park into that area would be probably take up some of that sparseness.
And then the second trail. And then the second trail, the Green Castle, where's that on the map?
Oh, are you guys able to see what I'm marking on the?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Scanning, oh, it's right here. So this is this is a proposed trail right now that's on the PTR2 map in the comp plan. I believe Gary's recommendation is to name it. Right now in the comp plan, it does not have a name. Previous comp plans did name it the Cougar Access Trail, so giving it a name and then making it a proposed trail in that direction. I wish I could change colors. I don't know if I can, but that's, oh, I can, here.
So I have a question then. Is there a way to do a projection that would show how this proposed park would change the walk shed? Like, can you say, here it is, and we would effectively take off this little State of Maine / Bird's Beak or whatever, and the rhombus that's on the outside of it? You know,
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I would have to double check with Director Fitzgibbons. The folks who did this map for us were a consultant hired to do the entire comp plan. I don't know what our contract looks like with them, if there's any follow-up, or how we could do that. I think that would be a great method for seeing, you know, what's the impact of including this. I just don't know the timeline on it.
yeah, and I think my other question would be, are there other opportunities if, you know, I'm looking at that large swath, the you know, Bird's Beak that goes down into all of May Creek Park Drive, that, like, what other opportunities might be in that area that could create a greater impact for those areas that are impacted by a lack of access?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that I would recommend we look a little bit further into. You know, I'm all for adding parks that are going to meet our goals. So using this as a reference in pinpointing areas that we want to be the most impactful. If I'm understanding what you're saying, that would also be my recommendation as well. I don't know any off the top of my head right now. It'd just have to be a little bit of a fact finding and, you know, research on my end to find what parcels are down there, what we might own down there already, and you know, just to see what the options are.
Do we want to start addressing some of the options that Gary presented? Or you said you had a few more points to cover?
No, I'm ready whenever, yeah.
So I'm going to take the easy one first. Change the name of a trail. So, I mean, technically, does that have to go in the comp plan, or is that literally something that can be done at any point? I want to try and be sensitive to cost and impact to amendments, whatever that entails. I mean, if changing the name of a trail is pretty straightforward, it can be done at any time, does that have to be something in the comp plan?
In talking to Director Fitzgibbons prior to this meeting, I ran it by her as well because I was thinking the same thing, that it seems pretty minor and something that we could just address in-house when we're doing edits on the map as it is. Because like I drew here, it would be, if I'm understanding it correctly, it would be changing the proposed route of the trail. And then again, adding the name on there as well, which are both things we could do in-house without having to send it to council.
Okay.
I'm wondering, in regards to the note about, in Gary's proposed changes, or the Newcastle Trails, the idea that putting it in the plan enables the city to pursue grants to build these parks and trails. But would the priorities, like I have it in front of me, I should be able to name it. Like, can we also apply for grants just with the goals and policies? Is that sufficient typically in state or regional or whatever grant opportunities? Or does a project have to be named? Or could we just say, we have a goal in our comp plan to preserve open space, and so we're asking you for this grant because we have this opportunity with this property? And like, in what ways are we limiting ourselves to this particular space if we name it, versus just having the concepts and the goals and the policies, and we can have an opportunity that might arise in 3 years would support a larger swath of residents?
That's a great question. I don't know for sure. I would want to double check before giving you a solid answer on it. Yeah, that's a great question.
Like, what would we miss if we don't name this specifically?
Right.
I'm on the same page with whatever version we do, right? Either a more high level naming our goals or being more specific, whichever version best allows us to apply for grants and get outside funding, that would be my preference to go with. So if we could have an answer for that question, I think that would be very helpful going forward before we go off to the races with asking for a bunch of amendments to the comp plan, because I know that that is like labor intensive. So,
Yeah, I want to double check and I can get back to you guys.
So I have two questions. I'm assuming on Gary's map that the red is the outline of the new development. The surrounding land is owned by then who?
Yeah, Gary, I think you would know really well. There's a couple different landowners there.
You can go. Gary.
Yeah, Gary, can you come up?
Yeah, we are in touch with planning through Aaron and the developers, and we've given maps to the developers showing the proposed new route. And it sounds like somebody wants to maybe not make these changes to the comp plan because of the labor of changing the name on the map or the line on the map. And no, it's critical that these be in the actual map because that will allow the city and the developer to put the trail on the new route and not the old route. And the same with the park. We have to get the park into the plan, even though it's just lines in the map. But if you save the cost of putting the lines in the map, you won't get the park ever. You got to put it in the map, in the comp plan. So, that's kind of critical. But yeah, the land would be open space, and there would be an easement for the city for that trail. And I've urged Aaron to get the easement as big as possible, like all the open space north of the residential area. So the trail would be open space right up to the houses. And that way we'd have flexibility in moving the route of the trail, as circumstances demanded. But again, these are trivial changes in the sense of labor. You're making new marks on a map, but don't save the money of the labor and leave them out of the map and the document, then we're screwed. And the other thing is, it's not just changing the map and the document, but for example, with the Sylvan Trail, we presented a whole section of the changes that we need to make. You need to change the park table, the resource park table. You need to have text describing what you're doing and so forth. So that's all in our proposal. So the idea is just, please accept Newcastle Trail's proposal, and then some of it may be outdated because of changes in the surrounding area. So then talk to us and let us update what we wanted to put in the plan originally. But again, we really need these things in the plan.
Right. So this may be a somewhat naive question, but we're proposing changes to somebody's private land. I understand we'd be getting an easement. Does putting it in the comp plan obligate or require, or I guess obligate us to allow us to get that easement?
No, what it does though, when we put these things in, a dotted line on the plan, if it crosses private property that can be developed, then it gives power to the city. Because since it's in the plan, the developer must put a trail somewhere along, to supply the route of that dotted line. So it enforces something on the developer and gives power to the city. And of course, with the map, putting the Sylvan Park in the map means that the city immediately could build a park on its own property. And then it could expand the park south by getting an easement, which might be very cheap or free from the HOA. And if it didn't build the park right away, it'd have some bargaining power to negotiate with the HOA and say, hey, we'll build a park if you'll give us a portion of your parcel for a trail easement, or the whole parcel, we'll buy it from you, that sort of thing.
Okay, and that kind of led into my second question is, what obligations would we be tying the city to by saying with the Sylvan Park that we are going to purchase or ask for an easement for that property that's owned by the HOA?
Yeah, it doesn't place any cost burden on the city except from the person drawing the map, a few hours of labor. But essentially what it does is say, this is something we're interested in doing. That's all it says. But if the city were to go out for a grant, now this park would be very cheap to build because the city owns the land, all they need is to put up a couple of signs. But having the park in the plan might also allow the city to apply for a grant to buy the HOA parcel, that sort of thing. So putting it in the plan empowers the city without imposing any burden on the city in terms of future costs or being required to do something. And it also empowers those of us who lobby for parks and trails, because if it's not in the comp plan, then the city can say, well, it's not in the comp plan, it was rejected, so it's not something we have to do. If it's in the comp plan, then we can go to the city and say, look, it's in the comp plan, and the neighbors all around want it, so let's do it. And also, if it's in the comp plan, we can show the comp plan to the neighbors, and they can say, oh, there's a park in the comp plan, so the city's authorized to build it, and we would like it. So, that's the way this thing works.
Yeah, I think, Brendan, I have a question. So I'm having a hard time reconciling this because we have a whole slide in your presentation about what should be a comprehensive plan. And I feel like it's really pushing it, like it says high level. And then in that sub-bullet of the RCW 36.70, it's very specifically saying estimates and evaluation. Like it feels very high level, but then this conversation seems to be the opposite. Was the intention of this slide to kind of steer us away from getting into the details, or I feel like I'm missing something.
Can you say what line again here?
Yeah, so staff recommend only the high-level necessary scope to be within the document per RCW 36.70A.78. All of these. A, estimates of park and recreation demand. B, an evaluation of facilities and service needs. So this feels different than what we're talking about, right?
I kind of had the same comment too, that this seems to be really granular, and what we're seeing here is at a higher level. And so I'm wondering if there's granularity already in the comp plan, or that's the intent, is to put something this granular in there, or is it at a higher level? Does that address?
That's exactly. I feel like this whole slide is telling us to stay high level, but we're kind of saying we don't want to. We want to really specifically have names and have park details and locations, which seems like the opposite of what this slide is telling us to do. So I'm just feeling conflicted about the guidance here.
Well, I will say the comp plan does include the Parks and Trails maps, right? It does get into some detail. This is in the comp plan, the Walkshed map. So, and we do have an inventory list of parks, and like I said, I would recommend that the trail, we can add that or we can reroute the proposed trail. I think that is getting a little granular, but it's something that we can do pretty easily on our side. We don't need to make that an amendment. Whereas the park, I think, is still pretty high level.
Is Sylvan Park in the comp plan?
It's not.
So if we want to ensure that there's work that will be done towards a new park, we need to get it into the comp plan, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Gary, I'm asking
I
Brendan.
know, okay, Brendan.
It would, yes, I mean, if we identify that park as the location of somewhere that we think is the most beneficial and where we want the next park to be, then yeah, we would need to put it in the comp plan as a proposed park, and there can be work put towards making that happen. However, if there's another location that we think is, based off of the 10-minute walk shed, that would have a bigger impact, then, we could recommend a different park. But it's also worth mentioning that if we put proposed parks all over the map, that's going to come at a cost of staff time and maintaining those parks. And, having parks are great, but, eventually we would have to increase the maintenance factors on all of those as well. So just something to keep in mind too.
Brendan just made an abstract statement that, yeah, there are other possibilities for parks, and we should keep that in mind. But in reality, by now, we've used up a lot of the available space for parks. Both sides of the city are pretty well developed. So what I'm trying to say is that don't avoid putting this park in the map to leave room for other parks. I mean, that isn't a problem. If we find locations for other parks, great, but this may be our last chance, or the only place we can put a good park to serve the other side. So if we put it in the plan, it won't hurt anything. Later on, we can put another park in the plan and choose between them. But at least it's in the plan, so planners will see it and say, hey, there's a potential park here to solve this park deficit. And again, I don't know where else you solve that particular park deficit than in this area. There just aren't that many more big open spaces. This is a very special open space. And so don't think about future parks being displaced unless you can give there's no rule that we can only have one park more. So let's do this little cheap park that won't cost anything, and then, it won't preclude any other parks whatsoever. We're not displacing any other future parks. That's really important. There are no reasons not to do this, and it has to be in the comp plan.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. So Brendan, of the three proposals, and you don't have to have a recommendation for us now, we can definitely come back in June and have additional conversations. But given what has been presented to us, what's your recommendation?
I think based off of what we're seeing on the walk shed right now, doing a little bit more of a robust search for parks more in that southwestern region would be, and prioritizing those potential parks. Again, we can talk about this again in June if I were to go take a look around and see if there's any other options. That would be addressing the issues that we're seeing on the walk shed map. Again, I don't know how much the addition of Sylvan Park would change the walk shed map. It could be significant. However, that's something I would have to look into as well.
I have a question about the proposed Cougar Trail.
Uh-huh.
One of the things that I notice as a frequent user of the trails in that area is the rerouting to the Terrace Trail. While I think it's one of the most beautiful trails in all of Newcastle, I do know that there's been some instability in the rock, the boulder area above and my wonder is then, is the rerouting to connect to the Terrace Trail in that area potentially limiting access should that boulder area ever become so dangerous that that access point is not available anymore? Like what are we limiting ourselves by if we change that access point and have it go through the neighborhood?
There's going to be a new Terrace Trail trailhead.
Okay.
Yep. We actually have it out to bid right now for someone to
So that would be taken out of the
Yeah,
hazard.
it'll still be down on 144th there, but just in a safer location. Good question. Sorry, go ahead.
I have one question. So are there proposed parks and trails currently in the comp plan? Like, is there a list?
There's proposed trails, and there's an undeveloped park at 95th, but no proposed parks.
Okay. That. And I just also want to remind everybody that this is something that we can revisit on an annual basis. So we don't have to decide the future of parks for 20 years of Newcastle in the next month and a half.
But if we have this now, so just circling back to what you said, we can come back in June. Would we be coming back in June to add to this? Or because you're gonna go look in the southwest corner to see if there's more spaces, but it wouldn't change this, right? This meeting carries paper. You would be looking for something to add as more?
You mean, would we want to do the Sylvan Park and another?
Is that what you're
Park?
saying?
I guess back to my point where we don't want to throw a lot of proposed parks on, given the impact and the cost of those down the road.
Okay, so then what, just to back way up then, what was it that you want to look at in June?
That would be based on if we want to come back, if you guys want me to go take a look and see if there's something else that we could do, or if you had any further questions that we need to address, have another conversation about in June.
I
then we
don't
could
feel
address
like
them
I
then.
need that.
If I may,
Yeah, please.
So there's a timeline in order to have council recommend amendments annually to the comp plan. And Newcastle Trails would like for these items presented to you to be added as amendments to the comprehensive plan. And so tonight, those have been presented to you. Questions have been raised. Staff will go back and get those answers for you so that in June, you can come back and consider whether or not you would like to recommend to council that these amendments get added. If the commission so feels that they would like to make that recommendation this evening without that staff input, that is the discretion. Obviously, this is your commission.
Connie, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe then can someone just recap for me what the open questions are that we want staff to answer by June?
I have, there are some that are specifically asked of Brendan Hutchins. But I have a couple that I've noted here. How does Sylvan Park change the proposed watershed? Are there other parks opportunities in the Southwest that would create a greater impact? This was Commissioner Van Atta's question about grants, and also echoed by Commissioner Kretzinger. What would we miss out on if we put this only in the comp plan? Getting grant funding seems to be a greater priority than necessarily putting it in the comp plan. And please correct me if I'm misstating those points and questions. And then I just wrote down the one, rerouting the Cougar Mountain Trail, will it create any instability, which it sounds like it may have been answered, but those were just a couple I've written down. And I know Brendan's written down a few, and we'll go back and look at the meeting and pass those on to the appropriate staff members.
Okay, yeah, I thought we'd said that there was a consultant that was hired for the walk shed and that we weren't sure that we would be able to get that person to do it again, but if we can, okay. I missed that.
I want to make sure I heard this clear. So proposal B, A and B can be done very simply updating the comp plan without an amendment. Did I hear that right? So changing the route and the name can be done without actually having to amend the comp plan?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a pretty good win right there, right? I mean, we don't need to have an official amendment. But the Sylvan Park begs the bigger question that I don't feel I can make a decision on that given what I don't know. And I feel like I should know. And I think we as a commission need to go back and talk with you, Brendan, about the future of parks, because I think the Sylvan Park may be a space, but there is a cost, right? I mean, there's going to be future maintenance that we would have to maintain that park. Our maintenance would have to go over there. There are a lot of things I think that would have to go into and we build a new park, we have to maintain it. So I think there's a lot more that would have to go into it. I don't feel like I have enough information to recommend to council that Sylvan Park be added to the comp plan. Does anybody else have a different opinion?
I'm in agreement, and there's not just the cost to maintain it, but there would be cost to create the park as well, which I would want to know what that is in kind of a range.
On the one-pager Gary put together for us, though, there is a note here that it says that it doesn't create expenses. It enables the city to pursue grants. So I guess that might be the only pushback I have to that of like, does this financially, like if you put it in the comp plan, does it financially commit us? Or is it like saying we will explore?
It doesn't financially commit us to making the park,
Let's
for
get that
sure.
answer from staff who actually work on the comp plan. So Brendan, are you able to answer that, or is that something we need to ask the community development director?
I just made a note to check with the community development director.
That is a great question, and that would be one we would come back and review in June. Perfect. But I would also like to overlay in that discussion in June, some other thoughts as far as ideas and other parks in that western part of our city, because it does look like it's a pretty vacant area. But I do know there's, like you said, there's some land development parks, new developments that are going in. I don't know if they're represented on here. They might be.
They wouldn't be represented. Well, there was Hillside Park, which is on here. So that's represented, which is our furthest west park. Oh, I can circle it here. That's our newest Hillside Park there.
Okay.
So the other piece, I think the converse of Connie's would be if we name that park, what opportunities do we, is there a possibility that we exclude other opportunities by specifically naming this project? Are there any consequences?
So I want to go back and just reiterate for the commission that we are in agreement that we can, if we're all in favor of B, which is rerouting the Cougar Trail and renaming it to the Cougar Trail. Do we need to vote?
Well, you're simply making a recommendation.
Recommendation to
So
council,
if you'd
right?
like to,
Or is it just, nope, not even that?
It's just making a
Okay,
recommendation.
just,
So you're welcome to vote if you would like that on the record, but,
is there anyone opposed? There's our vote. Okay. Two minutes.
The map pretty much This map pretty much starts just at the boundary of Newcastle. But if you look over here, in that area, Renton plans to build the Kenyon Dobson Park. And we have a shared trail, the Gypsy Creek Trail, that goes to that Kenyon Dobson Park, that'll connect to the May Creek Trail and the bridge we hope to build at some time in the future into Renton. So there will be a large park there accessible by sidewalks and trails in the near future. So, you know, again, the problem is the map doesn't show that. Yeah, so that the Kenyon Dobson Park is right about there, right on the edge of our city. And in fact, I believe even our current comprehensive plan does show a linkage, or at least the map we submitted for the comprehensive plan shows a linkage from our city into Kenyon Dobson Park. It's very short. From 116th, you just go a few feet and then you're in Kenyon Dobson. So there will be a connection from Newcastle to Kenyon Dobson Park. So you don't need, you know, a month's worth of research to learn that. But again, people have to look outside the boundaries, and all our maps are snuggled close to the boundary. So probably a lot of people aren't aware of the Kenyon Dobson Park.
Thank you, Gary.
One thing to mention is that the walk shed does not include parks that are outside of Newcastle jurisdiction, so that wouldn't, unless we made a change to how the walk shed map is calculated or laid out, that wouldn't impact what we're seeing here.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude agenda item 9.2. So moving on. Gary, thank you very much for talking to us. Absolutely, thank you. All right. Proposal to change commission term dates. So currently, our terms end July 31st, which happens to be our busiest time of the year. And this can be potentially very disruptive to the commission. So I would like us to consider recommending to council that we change our end of term date to December 31st. Now, we need to agree to make this request to council by a vote. And then we will let council know, and they can determine whether to change that policy. But I really believe it'll take pressure off this commission when someone's term is up, let's say December 31st, and the person decides they don't want to extend their term, and then it gives us several months then to get out the application, do the interviews, and have replacements in place before we actually get super busy with our summer events. So open it up for discussion.
I'm wondering if October wouldn't even be a better term date, just because that's right after Newcastle Days. We've got an even longer period to get people onboarded.
Ditto, Krutzinger.
I think December 31st might be, I agree. I think one of the reasons why there was maybe thought about it being later in the year was because we were still doing, or with consideration of volunteer appreciation in mid to late November. But if we were doing, if it turned out that we do volunteer appreciation earlier, that wouldn't be an issue. And I would just like to point out that I brought this up at one time because I felt, when I came on the commission, I felt fairly overwhelmed with what came flying at me. Yeah.
I didn't even consider it another date. I mean, I was just picking the date that council, their terms end December 31st, and planning commission ends July 31st, just like ours. So I think we can probably recommend any date that's more convenient for us.
I do think Allison's got a good point that it's not just the end of a term, it's also the beginning of someone else's, and what would be a good time for them to be coming in, especially because of the holidays at the end of the year and the way that goes. I could also see that being an odd time to join because we're less involved, people are gone, people are out of town, whereas something like October when we are still doing something, it can be just a better like onboarding experience.
Good. Any other thoughts? Are we all in agreement with October 31st to make a recommendation to council? Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll make a recommendation. Next, summer sponsorship status. So Christian, Ed, and I had a follow-up subcommittee meeting the other day, and wanted to give you guys a quick update. So we have a total of 102 businesses that we documented that we may or may not be reaching out to just based upon, these are just the businesses between Newcastle, Renton, and Bellevue. We have contacted 70 businesses to date. Of those, 21 are committed right now to contributing. Money commitments that are still pending are 11 of those 21. To date, we're estimating we are at 44,500. Our goal is 50,000, so we're 89% to our goal. Christian did some good math while we were thinking about this, and she said basically, if we can get 11 more sponsors at $500 each, we'll hit our goal. So, at our touch base, we have documented 25 of the sponsors who have not committed yet or gotten back to us. So we're going to go out and still have a 25, we're going to do an outreach to 25 more sponsors before probably the end of the month. You guys want to share anything else? No? Okay. Concerts in the park themed activities. Kim?
Hey, hey. Okay, well, summer's the best, everyone. And Connie and Shelly and I had an opportunity to meet, and we are grateful that we have our 4 concerts covered. And we talked about what would be some fun connected ideas, both for, like we tried to connect with the band and with, things that would be supportive of our community, or could just be fun ways for people to connect with our city, with one another. So our first concert, and the date is not ingrained in my memory, but it is mid-July. Amy knows.
July 23rd.
There you go. July 23rd is 2 Gregs who happen to be from Newcastle. And we thought that would be a Love Local night. It is a night for us to celebrate our volunteers and recognize our volunteers. We're hoping we can get local food truck options or food trucks that represent diverse cultures of Newcastle. And we're looking to, again, for activity, acknowledgement of volunteers, information about volunteering, an opportunity maybe for some of our local business organizations or whatever, like we're looking at ways that we can really get people connected to our community and our city. And we're open to other thoughts about that for Love Local. And I can keep going too if you want to talk about it now. You ready? Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking it'd be fun to have like a raffle as far as if you have ever volunteered or if you're a current volunteer with the city, get a raffle ticket, and then we could have prizes
T-shirt gun.
or gift certificates.
Yeah.
Gift certificate to a local restaurant, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Noted.
We do have quite a few 30th anniversary coloring pages left, so we could set up coloring stations in the picnic shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, our Public Works Department has been looking for a great opportunity to have people of all shapes, sizes, and ages decorate the snowplow. But unfortunately, during Newcastle Days, they're unable to, because you need to physically be at the snowplow. And we have just enough to work the event itself. We don't have extra staff to monitor the snowplow. So this would be a great opportunity for any of your themes to decorate the snowplow.
I had one idea that I'll bring up later on that one. Okay, but I like it. It could fit into the locals night. Love local. Okay, Diamond Star Halo. If you remember from my presentation of potential bands, Star Halo is the glam rock band. So think Elton John, Kiss, Queen, yes. And we thought it would be fun to do a dress your decade or an eras night. So for the youngins, that might be a Taylor Swift era. For anybody else, we can think neon, 90s, 60s, 70s, whatever you want, whatever you got. Shop your closet. Activities we could do, I know the Arts Council in the past has done friendship bracelets, which could be fun. We joked about an aired guitar competition or a costume contest. We are open to any and all ideas that could be connected to that. Give everybody a little think time.
Sounds like fun.
Camley Arts Council has a ton of beads, so we could bring out the beads and do bracelets for sure.
That's what I think would be, yeah. And we could even encourage people, you know, that, I mean, it's a thing that people do even ahead of time to have bracelets that they want to trade or, you know, it can be a whole thing. Okay. The first August night is the Pioneer Squares. And if you were at the Pioneer Square concert last year, you heard how the Pioneer Squares came, how we became aware of the Pioneer Squares. My beloved neighbor, Jim Capel, was a sports writer, and he had, I listened at his celebration of life, had the honor of finding that band. They were amazing. They did an amazing job in Newcastle. One of them happens to be a sports writer also that's in the band, and so we thought that would be a fun team spirit night. Wear your team colors, whatever they are. We're not going to limit you to Seattle. We're not even going to limit you to professional sports. If you want to wear Newcastle Lions or Hazelwood Wildcats? Mustangs, that's right. Thank you. Mustangs, you do you. It will be a fun way for you to find your fellow friends from Kansas City or Louisiana. University of Oregon, yeah, Ducks. So again, just encouraging people to wear whatever it is that they feel connected to. And we were thinking stadium type foods could be fun for that if we can get food truck vendors in the hot dog, burger, nachos, barbecue, sausages realm. That could be a fun thing as much as we can. Activities, good question, around to take me out to the ball game. We could have people get together in groups, you know, if we kind of notice various large gatherings of, we could do do the wave. Ed?
Could we do some, like Olympic Games, break people into teams and have some just field games or something like that?
No steeple chasing, though. Too dangerous.
Wife carrying competition.
You know, as you mentioned, bring out hula hoops and, you know, who can last the longest and everything.
Okay, yeah. That could be fun.
Both our Hazen and Liberty robotics teams do enjoy showcasing their robots, so maybe we could have a battle of the bots between Hazen and Liberty.
Yes.
And T-shirt cannon I know it doesn't fit the team thing, but I
That
do
is
enjoy
pretty
the
fun.
T-shirt cannon.
I got to push the button last year. It was awesome.
Maybe we could get a peanut cannon, you know, how they shoot T-shirts at hockey games.
Like the peanut guy.
We could be shooting popcorn or peanut packages.
Love it. Okay, and our final concert of the season is Two Story Zori, which is an island reggae band. And we were thinking beach party. So resort wear, you know, we were hoping for foods that we could lean toward Pacific Islands. We want that delicious shave ice truck if we can get it. Of course, there's talk about potentially a hula dance lesson ahead of time, but we're not quite sure if that's the best fit with the island reggae. you know, do we know anybody who has any steel drums? But we'll keep thinking on this. One of my thoughts with the snow plows, decorating the snow plows was like, you know, a lot of times they have the Christmas in July. Obviously, we don't want to be connecting to Christmas, but like a snowstorm in July or kind of like dreaming of snow. So it could be fun in July or August. Even that one would be fun to, wouldn't it be ironic to decorate the snowplow with tropical images? Sunshine and palm trees on the snowplows. Any other ideas or any thoughts that you have for our beach party bingo?
How about ukulele lessons or?
They do have that at the library, so I wonder if they would have,
Yeah.
yeah. Other thoughts?
If we did some of these fun things, or when we do some of these fun things, will we be able to use these to maybe start the evening earlier, and therefore will we have food trucks, food options available early enough to accommodate?
So the schedule's already set. So food trucks open at 6. Band starts at 7. Should this really become, you know, a bigger thing than what the commission originally envisioned, we can certainly adjust that time moving forward. This is the first time the commission has tried to, you know, add this layer. We do need to be mindful that 6 to 7, the band may still be doing sound check, so we'll have to work around that. But I think that's a great question for the commission to consider as the summer goes on and you see how this works and how you like this addition to the concerts and whether it is worth changing the opening time. But for this summer, no, we will not be changing the time.
Yeah, I think our intent as we were thinking about things that we could do was kind of providing something that might draw people to the park a little bit earlier. You know, it's tricky for anyone to get there by 6. That's probably plenty early for most.
Yeah.
But just filling that time so people are maybe encouraged to get there a little bit earlier rather than sliding in under home plate at 7 o'clock.
And then I know the poster's already been created too, so for promoting these theme nights, the newsletter, and could we use social media too, or just the newsletter for that?
All of the above, and in fact, we will be doing updated posters. So yes, we have one general summer events poster, but then we also promise, as part of our sponsorship, a flyer specifically for the fireworks, a flyer specifically for the concerts, and a flyer specifically for Newcastle Days. So there will be 3 additional flyers created that are more specific.
Great, good to know. Okay, good. I was worried. So we do have an opportunity then for that specific one to maybe even call out each night on it. Okay, nice.
Great. Good job, you guys.
Well, if anybody has any other thoughts, I know that I'm a slow processor myself. So if you wake up in the middle of the night at any point and have an addition that you'd like to add to that, feel free to email myself, Connie Shawley, no more than 3 at a time. But yeah, email us and let us know, and we can bring that into the planning as we kind of start to draft these ideas out into a little bit more firm structure.
Do we want to put something in our SharePoint site that
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
I could do that. Yep.
living, breathing document that we could add to?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be great. I think we have a concerts folder.
Yeah.
We'll create one if we don't. Good job, you guys. Anything else?
No, we're working on, if you have any song recommendations for the fireworks, starting to create a playlist for that. So email me your favorites and I'll consider. No, just kidding.
Okay.
See how they fit the vibe.
Thank you, themed activities team. And Amy will conclude with the volunteer appreciation event.
Yes, so we have some exciting news, very much tied into the concerts discussion as well as our volunteer appreciation. So in the course of sponsorship outreach, I had a series of 3 meetings with Regency Newcastle, who very much wanted to support the efforts of the commission and what they're doing for city events, but monetarily could only come in at a silver sponsor level. And so they offered with very much excitement to host the volunteer appreciation event at Regency as an in-kind donation. And so we have worked this out. I have gotten feedback from the Volunteer Appreciation Committee, or the Volunteer Committee. And we are very excited to announce that Regency will be hosting our volunteer appreciation event. So save the date for Wednesday, September 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. They are going to be hosting outdoors in front of their area. They're going to be setting up a tent, tables, chairs, linens, everything provided. So they're creating an outdoor venue space for us. The menu provided will include beer, wine, water, soft drinks. They're planning on either doing a barbecue or a very heavy hors d'oeuvre appetizer type menu. And dessert trays, which is apparently one of their specialties. So that will definitely up the game of what we've experienced in the past. Parking is going to, I know some concerns that came up regarding parking. We have discussed making parking available in the garage and making sure that staff who usually park very close to the venue will be parked off-site. Access to the AV equipment will also be there for us as well. So this is an ongoing discussion between Regency and myself. And I wanted to present this to the broader commission to see if you had questions, concerns about what Regency has offered, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what the city is offering in return. Okay, well, that's easy. And again, like the volunteer subcommittee, CAC subcommittee has been actually, like a lot of these questions have come up via the 3 members of the committee. So questions about parking and whether and what kinds of food there'll be. A lot of those had been hashed out but prior to going into this meeting. So in return, the city is going to provide a higher level of sponsorship benefits, but Regency is also going to be one of our themed concert activity sponsors. And they have chosen with much excitement to do the Love Local one. And that's in fact how this entire conversation happened, is because they were looking at the new sponsorship package. They saw the concert add-on and they very much wanted to support volunteers and volunteerism, but they were really drawn to the Love Local idea because you may not be aware, but Regency Newcastle is their they call it their baby because the founders are local, Bellevue based, and so Regency Newcastle is their home base, and so they're very excited about this Love Local. They very much want to support volunteer efforts, so they will be our first themed activity concert sponsor. Any questions about that aspect?
Okay. I guess my question's not necessarily about that aspect, but I know one of the main reasons that we were pursuing moving from Resonate to somewhere else was the budgeting constraints. With Regency offering us the venue does that help? Then is the budget just going toward like the food and drink itself and we're not paying like a venue cost, or how did that all hash out?
It is completely comped. Like, it is completely included. Venue, rental, food, service, everything.
That's exciting.
So could the funds budgeted to a volunteer appreciation event be used for volunteer appreciation, like at the concerts, to help?
Like a t-shirt cannon?
I mean,
Um,
if those funds aren't,
the short answer is no, because the line item is meeting meals. The long answer, I would have to check with the city manager.
So what's gonna happen with that line item now that you're not gonna be spending that money? Or
At this point, it does not get spent.
does it get banked?
No. No. But that's a good question.
And then my, the other question that I have is, what kind of a capacity, is Regency gonna be prepared for? Like, for how many people?
The same as with Resonate.
Which was, can you remind me, 125, 130?
So standing room only is 140, but we expected about 90 to 100. No, that's not the way it
I'm
works.
kind of sort of joking, I'm just wondering where that money goes next, because
It-
it seems like it'll be gone, which might be fun.
well, that's this year, but next year, we probably still want to make sure that we've got a budget line item.
Right.
Yes,
it
this
might-
is my concern as well, that the budget line item gets slashed and burned. As like, I don't want to sound like I'm not incredibly thankful, because this is gonna be a great event, and I'm very excited about it, and I think it's very good, but I am concerned about cutting that out of the budget, because I don't wanna start relying on the generosity of our community every single year to provide thanks to our volunteers. That's all I'll say about that for now.
Noted.
And then is everything going to be tented? Because it's going to be hot from 5 to 7.
Oh, but September 17th, God help us if it's not raining.
Yeah, so will everything be tented, do you know?
Would you like everything to be tented?
I mean, I think so, yes, just in case.
Just in case.
And
And they
then-
may have some big fans.
And then as far as parking, I know when we had our foundation dinner at Aegis, there wasn't enough parking there, so we had a bus. Like, we all parked actually here at City Hall and had a bus or limo pick us up and bring everyone. Is that, like, does Regency have a shuttle or something?
I'll ask.
If
That's a
parking
good question.
is a problem.
Or we could borrow the Aegis bus. No, just kidding.
Well, and Regency is also within walking distance to City Hall. I know when I walk back and forth to the meetings myself, and not everybody will necessarily use that, but I will ask.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Amy.
I think that's really great news.
Okay, last thing on the agenda is any additional public comment. Carol?
Good evening. My name is Carol Simpson. I live in the Lakeview Apartments. And if the staff person could put up the walk shed map again, I'd like to speak to that. For those who don't know me, and I'd like to introduce myself to Commissioner Forsberg, I'm also the president of the Friends of the Newcastle Library. We have an event coming up on Thursday, June 12th from 6 to 8 p.m., the Newcastle Silent Reading Party. And it's going to be at the Coleman, and it costs $20 to sit there for an hour and have a little food and read silently. And also, I joined the Eastside Genealogical Society because they used to sponsor family tree maker special interest group classes that were at the Newcastle Library. And that was years ago, so long ago, they're now online because of COVID. And now because the person who teaches them lives in Indiana, but she's still president of the Eastside Genealogical Society. Also, I've been a former member of the Planning Commission from 1999 until 2007, and a city council member from 2008 until 2019, if you don't know me about that. So I'm very familiar with the comprehensive plan. But like yourselves, when I was on the Planning Commission, we started talking about the comprehensive plan. Even though I was an architect and I knew about zoning and planning, I had no clue what the comprehensive plan is. And unfortunately, you haven't been given enough information tonight. You haven't. There should have been a thick agenda packet for you to read the goals, the policies, and all the maps and all the information that's contained in the comprehensive plan, and the 6-year long-range, 6-year plan for funding parks and trails for 6 years, and then the 20-year plan. So I've been through planning with the city of Newcastle and update the comprehensive plan, the major update, 2 or 3 times. And I felt very strongly this last time, and Gary did too, because he's been through this also, and he's a little bit older than I am. I'll be 75 next month. This might have been our last chance, because 10 years is the only time you get into it big time and really generate something new. But what about parks? I'm a fan of parks. I had a little kid when I moved here, and I've lived in 3 different locations in Newcastle. I don't think very many people can say that. I lived in the Newport Crossing Apartments. I've lived for 25 years up in Olympus, and now I live on the west side of town. If you look on your little map, the very, very farthest west. That little box that contains the Lake Ridge apartment, the Lakeview Apartments, shouldn't contain us. I can't get to a park or a trail from where I live. Now, the staff says, well, there's a trail up the easement next to your apartments. There is not. It's in Renton, and I've looked at the Renton comp plan. They have no trail plan there for the next 20 years. I can't walk to a park or a trail in Newcastle from where I live. But it's important to look at this map, and it should include the surroundings, and it shouldn't be Newcastle floating in vapor. It should show what's near us and what I can walk to, or what you can walk to, or what your kids can walk to. Our kids are isolated these days. They're sitting there looking at their phones. They're mentally, psychologically challenged. We need to get them out into parks and playing together after school. And this map doesn't cover all those play opportunities. Hazelwood, Risden School isn't on this map, but I drove by the other day and there were a whole bunch of kids playing baseball. They're Newcastle kids, they're playing there. That's an outdoor play opportunity. That should be on this map. It's not. We worked hard to get an agreement with Renton School District to use the school facilities, both of them, Risden and Hazelwood. And Newcastle Elementary is also available to us. All 3 of those buildings are available for your events. Speaking of which, it is kind of weird that you're arranging volunteer appreciation when the top tier of volunteers that you should be honoring are the Community Activities Commission and the Planning Commission. You guys meet for 4 years every month without pay, one of the biggest contributions to our city. I know I was on the Planning Commission, I received trinkets for my being on the Planning Commission, and I valued those. Later on, when I saw the Newcastle pin sitting in a candy dish as a giveaway, I felt like, wait a minute, I was given one of those to honor my service on the Planning Commission, and now they're handing them out like candy? Come on. So I used to live in the Triangle on the top of Olympus. Now, this is based on a 10-minute walk on level ground. If anybody of you have hiked down and back up to Olympus from Lake Bourne Park, you know that you have to have somebody who knows CPR with you. Because I did, because my neighbor knew CPR because they were airline flight attendants, and I walked with them down to the park every day and around this loop and everything. I've been a fan of wanting more parks. The city of Newcastle has never, and let me preface this, we have two types of parks in our comprehensive plan. We have parks and we have resource parks. Many of these parks you're walking to are resource parks. They contain trails. There's no open picnic area, there's no playground, there's no swing set, there's no basketball hoop. You can't run across a mown lawn in a resource park. It may have the name park in it, but to me, it's not a park. It's an open space. Coal Creek Park, that big green area up in Bellevue, if you look at the Bellevue list of parks on their website, you won't find it because they only list their parks, not their resource parks. So May Creek is a resource park. Hazelwood is a resource park. And you can tell the difference between Hazelwood because Donegal is a park. It's got play structures, it's got barbecue stuff, it's got open lawn, you can run around with your dog and play, and it's accessible from the street. The police want to drive by and see that there's no nefarious activities going on there. You send your kids out to play. You might live nearby, you might be your kitchen window faces the park and you can see your kids playing. Or at least you know your neighbors could possibly see them. My neighbor called me up because my kid was playing down in the water at a storm pond where he really couldn't be seen. And she wanted to let me know because it was also frozen at the time. If it had fallen in, we would have never found him. He was alone. So storm ponds are not parks. They look like open space, but they're fenced off. But they're not a place to play. Water off our streets flows in there. It's not healthy water. It's not a place to play. So this walk shed is a new level of service on how we serve our community with parks. So going back to my definition of what's a park and what's a resource park, I'm going to say the city has never, in its entirety, ever purchased land and built a park. So if you worry about putting stars around here about where we need parks, you look at past comp plans, we had plenty of stars on where we wanted parks. There was a star on the Heemstra property where you just renamed a park. There wasn't a star on the property where the Bima House is being moved to. I really object that there's a whole conglomeration of parks all over in that one area, and there's no parks over here in the west. Really poor planning, people. Also, what's equitable? Is it equitable to the west side that the parks they have to walk to are mostly resource parks and trails, that there's no place for their kids to play? As neighborhoods age, and I moved out of Olympus and sold my house to some young couple who wants to have a kid. They are in that triangle where it's too far for their child to walk down to Lake Warren Park to play by him or herself. They have to drive. Is that equitable? Is it equitable that one of the three parks in Madison Lane is not developed as a park? You wouldn't be able to name it as a park, but it's a park. Little Rhodey Park was built and developed by a developer as part of a development, like a lot of our parks are that we have. The city forgot about it. It wasn't being maintained. And then the neighbors finally created such a ruckus that the city started to maintain the park. But what's equitable? Do we have park design standards? No. Why don't you guys put together some park design standards so we have equitable parks? So we have lawns, lights, trees, shrubs, paved pathways, because some pathways aren't paved. Some parks don't have lawns. Some parks don't have trees and shrubs. Some parks don't have lights. Is it really nice that the parks in the reserve by the golf course are fancier than the parks on the west side of the city? Is that equitable? Or Windtree Park got everything but the kitchen sink in it. Everybody wanted everything in it. It's got a labyrinth, it's got a drinking fountain, it's got a gazebo, it's got paved trails, it's got everything. But when they wanted to do Little Rhodey Park, it doesn't have any lawn, they didn't plant a tree, it has very few shrubs, and it looks pretty sparse. It doesn't have much green space, but it's called a park. I think of green as being a park. This used to be a forest, and now I'm glad to see the green going here again. This used to be a forest. So the other thing to look for in our city that isn't on this map is our stormwater vaults. A lot of neighbors are using them as play areas. They're lawns, and they put their little kid basketball hoop and their big wheel, and they're using them as play areas, as neighborhood play areas. That's something to think about in our goals and policies. When we look at our park map, there's going to be a vault in the Tool development. It could be a little play space for that area, and it's on the west side of the city. It could be a play space. But the city was really against pocket parks. They took those out of the comp plan before. We don't want any pocket parks. Why not? Oh, it costs us money to maintain them. I'm sorry. Well, maybe part of the plan is we have a parks levy to pay for maintenance of parks if we really want parks to pay for them. That's an option. So I've spoken long enough. And lastly, on the Sylvan Park, again, the only place in our comprehensive plan where they mention public safety is in the parks element, because they want parks to be safe. They want to be able to police to drive by. So if you think of sending your kid to a park to play, do you really want them to walk down a trail into the forest where there's no homes looking at the park? It's got to have police presence. So the Sylvan Park, as Gary and Peggy want it, isn't appropriate as property developed as a park. Sorry, Gary's a good old friend of mine, but we don't always agree on everything. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, last thing on our agenda is our planning calendar, and our next CAC meeting is Wednesday, June 11th at 6 p.m. And if there's nothing further, the time is 7:51 and we are adjourned.